The Texas Policy Foundation does a great job analyzing different policy issues and helping people like myself to understand these issues. Joining me via phone this morning, he is the senior communications director for the Texas Policy Foundation. His name is David Guenthner. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it. Good morning.
All right, let's first talk about what is the state of the economy in the state of Texas, and what are these guys doing in Austin?
Well, if you look at the economy, things are turning up. I mean, we've still got a ways to go to get back to where we were before the big global meltdown of the economy. The comptroller, Susan Combs, yesterday announced that she was increasing her revenue estimate for the next 2 years by $1.2 billion. This is on top of $300 million that she had already announced earlier. I mean, it's a good sign, but still we're going to have less revenue over the next 2 years than we had before the recession. So, the pressure's still going to be on the legislature as far as figuring out how to deliver, the core services of the state within the very tight amount of revenue.
From what you're seeing, dipping into the rainy day fund, good idea or bad idea?
Well, the House came in and they went into the rainy day fund for $3.1 billion to close the current year budget deficit, but they have sworn off using it for the next 2 years. What the Senate did was that they pulled $855 million more out of the rainy day fund to deal with the current year's budget deficit, which would roll $855 million surplus into the next budget. Now, the reason that they would do that is that there's a different vote requirement in the legislature for accessing the rainy day fund now as opposed to for the next budget. That basically they would need if they were to use rainy day funds as part of the next budget, they would need to have the support of 2 more senators and 10 more House members. It's I would say a clever way to try to get at it, but the House has made clear that that's a non-starter.
Now, if they don't come to an agreement, there will be a special session, huh? And the governor has said he doesn't want to see a special session, but it looks as if these guys can't get together. We'll have one.
I think there's a lot of bluster about that, and this tends to happen at this point of the session, where you have people who may not have agreements on particular bills, and a lot of tension builds up. Almost always it winds up getting worked out. I think at this point they've got agreement on everything except K-12 and higher education. They're right now $1 billion apart on higher ed, about $3.8 billion apart on K-12 education. But there are some bills that will be coming up over the next couple of days that, assuming that they pass, will wind up narrowing that difference considerably. And so, the question is going to be, will those bills move through, and is there any willingness to budge beyond that to get the rest of the way there? I can tell you that there's not a whole lot of interest among the members or the staff or folks like us on the outside of having the legislature in town in mid-July and early August, unless it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. All right. One of my favorite subjects, the elimination of property taxes. As a lifelong Texan, my family actually helped found this great state. People came here originally because of the land, and they saw the opportunity to make a living off the land. Davy Crockett said as much when he came to Texas. We need to own our property in Texas, in my opinion. You guys have written a paper on this, and one of the things you guys talk about is that the proposed tax reform that you guys are proposing would lead to a net gain of new jobs during a 5-year horizon between 127,000 plus and 312,000 plus over the job growth Texas would have had if no tax reform were implemented. You guys are saying that if you eliminate property taxes and do something else, then that would actually boost the economy in Texas. Talk a little about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, what this was a paper that we had done about 2 years ago, and I think this is going to be a topic that's going to come up over the next 2 years because we are going to, at some point between now and 2014, need to come up with a new mechanism for financing Texas public schools. The position that we take at the foundation is let's eliminate the property tax, state, local, schools, city governments, counties, all of it, and replace it with an expanded sales tax. That what would happen is, depending on how you set the rate or the base of the sales tax, that you would wind up having a rate somewhere between 9% and 12.5%, depending on what you decided to cover, but that you would save $1 billion a year from not having to deal with or have the central appraisal districts around the state and the property tax appeals and all that type of stuff, plus that you would have a gain to the Texas economy of between $20 and $50 billion.
Yeah, in your paper, you guys talk about that. If property taxes as a source of revenue were abandoned and that burden was placed on consumption, personal income in the state of Texas could potentially increase in the range of $3.1 billion to $3.3 billion in the first year. Those are pretty staggering numbers.
Yeah, and most importantly is that it makes the tax a transparent one that people can understand. Okay, here's the cost of my local government to me, and that it's a very open and transparent way to deal with it. And one thing I would point about the study is that it was commissioned Dr. Arthur Laffer's firm, Dr. Laffer being the one of President Reagan's chief economic advisors during both of his terms. He one of the world's most renowned economists to do that for us. So there's a lot of experience and credibility in the work that we did on that.
Wow. I'm really hoping that we can get this thing, I'm with you. I want to talk about this for the next 2 years, and hopefully in the next session we will have some legislators that will actually try to push this thing through, because I think it's good for Texas, and really I think it's good for the United States, because to me, if Texas can take the lead on this, I think other states will then be forced to take a look at it, and hopefully either they will improve or we will receive what they lack, one of the two.
Yeah, if you look at the, I mean, there's a lot of folks who've been talking about an income tax and how we need to have a very balanced economy of having income from income taxes and property taxes and sales taxes, and that's really the best way to have a tax system. The data shows clearly that the states that perform the best economically do not have all three of those taxes, and Texas gets a considerable benefit from not having an income tax. And we believe that from an efficiency perspective and from a transparency and economic growth perspective, that leaning on the sales tax is really the best way to go.
Wow, good stuff. David, thank you, sir, so much for joining us this morning. How can folks get a hold of you and find out more about the Texas Policy Foundation?
You can go to www.texaspolicy.com. Also, since we've been talking about the budget, go to conservativebudget.com. You can see our television commercials, get in contact with your legislators, tell them to hold the line on spending.
Absolutely. David, thank you for what you guys do. You guys do a great job down there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy to come on anytime.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. It is 7:44, 16 minutes away from 8 o'clock. This is the Voice of Freedom. Coming up next, let's talk about this a little bit here. Would you like to see the elimination of property taxes in the Lone Star State? 903-793-1071. 903-793-1071. This is the Voice of Freedom.
And defend what's yours.